This is Kanchana here, and this is my presentation for the final for CSC I63 Big Data Analytics. And my current topic is HCatalog. HCatalog is a storage and database management layer for the Hadoop system. HCatalog is currently shipped with Hive, and basically it's just going to store as a meta data store information storer, and it also knows where your data is stored so that systems like Hive, Yarn, and Pig can access that data. You don't need to know the actual basics behind the data, where it is stored and what it has, for them to proceed with the processing, and this serves that purpose. The HCatalog metadata information is stored in RDBMS. In my scenario, this is in MySQL, but for other instance, it could be anything, PostgRE or any Oracle or any other database. And I have we need to know the difference between what is a data and what is a metadata. Basically, data is the one which has the actual information, and in Hadoop, the data is stored in HDFS, whereas the actual metadata would be stored in this HCatalog. And this is one of the pictures which I had taken, which clearly explains what a HCatalog is. The metadata is stored in the RDBMS, and the HCatalog is used as a basis for us to access the data. And in this case, they would use APIs for that to access the actual information. And this is another one which I got from the definitive guide, which also gives a basic information about it. And these are some of the HCatalog commands, and basically we could use only the DDLs, and this is how you would access the HCatalog through HCat command. And these are some of the Hive commands, which are these are mostly SQL like commands which you would use. And to access the Hive CLI, you would use beeline and then connect to the database. We would look at it in detail when we log in and look at the demo. And to use pig with HCatalog, you would use pig -use HCatalog, and then the actual pig statement. In this scenario, it gives the metadata information for that table. And this is basically it. Load that table using the HCat loader, and this is the API which would retrieve the information and describe the content. This is another way for accessing the data. This is through Hue. Hue could be connected to show the actual database, and you could access the information. This is one of the most important files for me, because I installed the Hue Uzi and Hive and everything. So we need to be clear on where everything is stored and what are the jar files which are getting picked up and how it's being used. So this is the most important file which we have. And what we are trying to achieve here, to access different technologies, to access the data using different technologies, and to create some statistics with it. The technologies I used would be Hive, Hue, and Pig. I tried to do MapReduce, but unfortunately I had some issues which I was not able to resolve at the appropriate time. And we would also review the metadata information stored in MySQL to have an understanding of how things are stored. These are the technology solutions I have done. I have installed Hive, which comes with a HCatalog, and I have Pig, Python, Hue, Uzi, and MapReduce, which was unsuccessful. And let's move to the demo piece of it. So basically, now we are at our Hadoop site, and we need these both of these servers to be up. We need to always activate the meta store first and then go with the Hive server too, so that it's easy to proceed. And let's look at how to use this information in HCatalog. It's HCatalog -e show tables. This is basically it. It's just a simple query, and it would give you the information of what are the tables which are being used. And if you look at, it takes some time, so we really need to make sure we are not having any issues. Okay, so it took 2 seconds to retrieve that. What are the tables which are being used? So now I would like to access this same information through Hive. So basically we would be using this statement to we will be doing beeline, which connects to the Hive to server CLI beeline. And then once you are in beeline, you would need to connect to the JDBC server, and this is the way you would do it. And Hive and my password, or the actual passwords which are being used. So to look at how that Hive and my password came into picture, in the Hive site.xml file, you would specify what is your connection username and password, and you would basically use that same username and password in your wherever you have the connection set up. So that is basically it. And now we have that cleared. So we are now going to connect. We are now going to connect to the actual server, which we did using the connect, and it would tell you what you could do and everything. It is connected to the Apache Hive server and uses the driver Hive DCB, JDBC and everything. So now that we have it connected, you could do here, it's basically whatever you would do in a MySQL command, you could do it in here and it would produce the information. But if you're looking for any data related activity which needs to be pulled up from the HDFS, it would create a map and map reduce job, which would take some time. I wouldn't want to really show it in here, but let me just try in this instance. I am going to look at, so for in this instance I'm going to look at the credit score from that table where the property state is equal to CT, and I think it's the first payment date is in 2015 4. So just so that it pulls that information. So while it pulls the information, we would move on to retrieve that, to look at information and how pig could be used. So to use pig, we would have to use pig use HCatalog, and then you would provide the actual pig file name. So I think in this instance I had it in describe Freddy Mag.pig, which is basically the same thing, pig minus use HCatalog and then the pig file name. So in this instance it would just create a map reduce job, but it would get that information. So in this instance there was no row retrieve, so basically I'm going to run this thing again with just the CT to see how much it retrieves. And you could do the same thing with the pig my use catalog, and you could also use the same information to see in Hue, which is basically going here and looking at that actual information. It's going to be slow because we submitted 2 map reduce jobs, so it's going to look at that information in a slow way. When you log into Hue, for you to be active, you need to get the Hue and the server up and the Uzi and everything. All these would have been easy if we would have had the Cloudera Manager installed. But I wanted to try installing and getting it from the basics, trying to understand. And that was, of course, a good learning because I was able to get into it and understand how everything is stored. One of the most valuable information I thought was to have the ports and the logs and where the information are stored. So it was a really good exercise for me to understand how it is being stored. So in this case, it looks good. I'm not going to do any query, but I'm just going to show you a table where in this instance, it's already connected of how we do it. And if you see in here, we have the databases, it shows how it is. And it's directly connected to the HCatalog. You would do, to do a pig query, you would go to a pig editor and you would use the pig data, like for this instance that has these commands. But one thing here is we need to set the properties right so that it executes properly. It needs to know where the hive site.xml file is. So basically these are the important things which we need to know. Say for in this instance, say we got the answer for the hive query which we did, which described the table information. And this is the hive query which has the credit score of what are the credit scores is from Connecticut state has been printed here. So now that we have it cleared, I want to show the metadata information of how MySQL stores this information. So you would do meta store. All these are stored in the meta store. And then you would do show star from TBLS. Oh, sorry, it's select star from TBLS. So in this instance, if you look at it, it has the table names, sample, Freddie Mae, loans, and sample file. And it has where it is being stored and all that detail. So this is how it actually, so you would not be able to query select star from tables in your Hive because it's basically redirects the query accordingly. And all the data would be stored in in HDFS, basically in Hive, warehouse, and sorry, I had a we would store this in this Hive warehouse folder where whatever HDFS data we have, it would be moved from there to here. So these files would be created. And moving on to our presentation, I faced issues with the Hive compatibility because I had downloaded the source, and then I had to compile. And another easy alternative would have been to use Cloudera Manager. The learning installation needs to be insane. It's a fast changing technology, so we need to be careful. And CVK and Cloudera websites are not really sufficient. And review your bash profile. Thank you to the teaching staff and to Dr. Soren for an excellent learning this term. I appreciate